So it's so great that you've been able to pass through town again. And
It's a little colder here than it is in Dubai.
a little bit. First of all, I'm curious to know what is the piece that you're wearing today?
What we've got here, and I know people can say you're nuts for wearing it, but it is actually. We have our own stickering packages to put on our watches so they don't get scratched up if we want to wear something. Maybe show it off a little bit. Come on, sometimes we do it. And in this particular situation, it is kind of a show-off piece. This is a Patek 5711 40th anniversary. So for those who don't know about the Nautilus or reference numbers, what this was is a commemorative piece done in 2016 for the 40th anniversary of the Nautilus. Gerald Genta created the design back in 1976. So in 2016, if you can do your math, that's 40 years. So this has, you know, 1976 to 2016, 40 written on it. It's made out of pure platinum. And it had an MSRP at the time in 2016 of about, if I stand correct, 120,000 US. And you could only pay that if you were lucky enough to have Patek reach out to you and say, hi, we think you're important enough to have the ability to buy this from us. We've given you that permission. And if you're talking about like a current value now, and this is the difference between hype pieces and rare pieces. Hype pieces go up and down according to what the market says is cool today. Oh, we're wearing stainless today, wearing white gold, diamond set, or whatever sports watches. Rare pieces always go up in value. The current market price, if I'm correct, is somewhere between 5 and 550,000 US. So you're talking 4.5 times its value in the last decade. So I know it was a long-winded explanation. I could have just said 5711 Nautilus 40th anniversary. People could have Googled it, but it's because we have a lot of entrepreneur discussions, whether it's over WhatsApp or whatever, depending on where I am in the world. That's not a flex. That in itself, this isn't a watch. You wear it on your wrist. It can tell you time. But when you understand what assets actually grow in equity, that changes the way you look at life. You can call this a watch, but this is a piece of equity for anyone who is lucky enough to attain something like this. And there's pieces that you can play with much lower down. I'm just giving you an example of one of 700 on the planet. There will never be 701.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about how you had brought a few other pieces with you. Can you sort of tell me more?
My apologies. I do have to keep track of the phone. I'm on different time zones, so I will interrupt. I'm sorry for everybody watching. I do have to keep, up to date with this. Yeah, it was kind of an interesting situation. Like I was telling you, I was brought some pieces over from the vaults in Dubai because some of our members our young entrepreneurs have achieved new milestones in their lives since working alongside us for the last 5-6 years. So did bring some pieces. What kind of stuff would you like to see? I got to be careful how much I show because it's got their names engraved on it.
Definitely, yeah.
So
I definitely just would be curious to learn more about the material or like the things that set each watch apart, the things that make them unique and what might stand out to an entrepreneur about this watch that they'll be prepping.
That's simple. Okay, so you brought up the materials. That's actually very important because that determines not only the current market valuation, but more importantly, what the manufacturer has to sell it for. You've seen what's happening with gold over the last 18 months. It's 2.5 times. It was under $2,000 a couple of years ago, and that was 40. It hit an all-time high of 45.18 or 28 2 days ago. So that affects if you're making a solid gold, but 18 karat gold. Everything that I have today is from Rolex, and there'll be anything from stainless steel all the way up to platinums. Understanding what it's made out of is a huge factor in what its cost is and how much it will retain in the future. I guess it's good that you brought that up because you can also buy the reference number because a lot of people, I don't understand the reference numbers and stuff like that. So when you know the actual how to break down your reference number between all the models in a Rolex. So I'll use one of these as an example. These are actually the exact same watch. So this is for anyone who likes their watches. This is a Rolex Sky Dweller. It is a Rollister, so that means it is stainless steel and white gold. That reference number is 326934. The 4 denotes that it's a mix between stainless steel and white gold. Beautiful piece. This one is roll. Mr. Chen. Okay. We've got the matching one because they're business partners from Mr. Wong. Beautiful pieces. Now, before we get into everything else, let's go through what each of the materials are. If the last digit is a 0, that's full stainless. That means there's no precious metal in it at all. It's just stainless. The nice thing about stainless steel is that you can control the costs. Stainless steel doesn't really go up and down. There's no big market that causes stainless steel to go through the roof or to collapse. So those watches typically stay very static in the aftermarket. Then you've got last digit ending in 1, and that is stainless steel and rose gold. So you'll see a lot of that in something like the Rolex root beer, where there's also a full precious metal root beer, full rose gold. But I actually have one in here, so when we get to it, you'll understand where the case and the outside of the 3 links are stainless steel, and then up through the center, you've got the nice rose gold links. And that makes a really beautiful visual, but keeps the cost down. It gives the elegance of gold, but lowers the cost a bit with the white gold with it. Then you've got your number 2, which is your stainless steel and platinum. Same idea. Number 3 is stainless steel and yellow gold. Number 4, stainless steel and white gold, like you saw with these. 5 is when you start getting into full precious metals. That is going to be a solid rose gold watch. We've got these in here. I'll be able to show you. I believe it's a date. Number 6 is full platinum. And number 7 is something that you're not going to come across very often. That is an outdated number because they used to use a 14 karat. When gold went up really high decades ago, they had to start, bringing the content, the gold content, the alloy down so it could be affordable. Still affordable. It was still gold, but it's very difficult. Market versus what you can afford to buy is 2 different things. Like, yes, gold was lower compared to now, but in relation to the average market, nobody could afford, an 18 karat gold watch decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got number 8, which is your solid 18 karat yellow gold, and number 9, which is your solid 18 karat white gold. So when you understand that, the 1 through 9 system, you know how right off the bat, regardless of the reference number, if you look at the reference number, you know exactly what it's made out of. So we can get into, shall we?
Yes.
All right.
Let's dive in.
So I found your interest in watches over the last few months has just kind of peaked. The more you're learning about, the more excited you're, not only from the watch side of things, but again, from the learning how to grow an asset base, something you can pass down to your children, essentially tax-free income, whether it's invested or you put it in different avenues like GICs, TFSAs, all that kind of stuff, is basically registered. So if you haven't done it properly, you could lose half to 80% of it upon passing, even with an airtight, will, proper estate planning. If you don't factor everything out, individually, certain investments, we'll say, would pay out a certain way. But let's say you have an unfortunate passing and you've got a whole bunch of stocks and you own a percentage in these businesses. Well, let's say the stocks, it's down, during a downturn, and it's a forced sale upon your passing. They never got the chance to recover. So if you're down 20%, like we've seen several times over the last decade, and it was $5 million, if you're down 20% this month, there's $1 million less in value. And then all that capital gains will get taxed at whatever rate that is. So let's say you had $5 million portfolio that cost you $2 million over your lifetime to build, and it got up as much as $5 million. But in the current market, it's $4 million because let's say there's trouble economically in the world. So now you've got only $4 million. at a cost of $2 million. So there's $2 million worth of capital gains. Well, that $2 million goes on top of that year's income, and you're going to be taxed at the top bracket because you're going to be way up there. Like, that's nuts. But what if you also have RSPs? So you saved up your whole life to put aside RSPs, and now let's say you've got this another 6 or 7 figures worth of RSP that has to be, they'll force it to be taken out yearly at a certain rate, and it tapers off as you get older. But they front load it, so you have to take off the most up front. So if you're taking off the most up front, that's now revenue or income. Revenue is just personal income. Revenue typically is corporate income. So if you now have to take $9,000 a month out of your RSPs, because that's what the government's forced you to do, that's $108,000 a year, which had already pushed you into the median tax brackets. Then that $2 million. So you see how you're going to start everything you add to that. Now you're losing in Canada 48.6%. So even if you were living with an income of around $60,000 a year, you were getting taxed at, what was that, 28%? So having all of this stuff having to be liquidated upon your passing, everything you've built your life up, you're going to lose at least 50% of, if not more. I'm not going to go into that math, but it's something people have to figure out properly with a real good estate planning accountant and lawyer on how to. I'm not going to turn this into a nerd lesson. Let's just get into the watches. I found it really intriguing how much you've picked up over the last little while.
Yeah.
And it's made it more fun when we have our discussions.
Definitely.
All right. We've got some beauties.
Damn.
Yeah. As you can see, the more expensive ones still have some type of protective tape on them. So what should I do? Should I just rip through? Yeah. Okay. So we'll start over here. They're in here fairly tight. I don't like having stuff move around. So what that is, this is actually quite a rare dial for the Oyster Perpetuals. To me, these are one of the most elegant watches. I don't care if there's fancier or more expensive. And I actually like the Oyster steel bracelet. Everybody's like, Jubilee, Jubilee, which looks great when it catches the light. But on my opinion, on a man's wrist, I like the solid feel of the solid links. I guess in comparison, if for those who don't know, that's the Jubilee bracelet. So it is very elegant. It catches the light. It looks very good in a suit. But day to day, I think, my opinion, they're happy. I like that. What would you like to go through? Do you want to discuss prices? Because a lot of people like to hear about the investment side of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of curious to hear like the retail suggested price versus even just like raw material kind of estimate.
I won't be able to. I don't know the current raw material is like stainless steel. Gold, like I said, was up at $4,500 an ounce, which is ridiculous. But here, let's rattle off the reference number for this. So this is an Oyster Perpetual 41 mil pistachio dial. So it's one of they came out with 3 dials a few years ago, and this was one of the rarest. And we're going to go with US dollars. I know we're in Canada, but the US peso isn't really, our Canadian peso doesn't really help us with fluctuations in US dollar to gold. So if you have something like this, we'll go from a Canadian price as well. So $8,400 is what the authorized dealer, if you can get it, would charge you, which is like $6,200 US kind of thing. At the peak, when the markets were really, really high, this fetched a premium, I think about $23,000, $24,000 Canadian, so about 18 US. So you're basically looking like you tripled. You could go grab this from your authorized dealer and walk out to a collector, and that's what the market rate was bunched for, 300%. To me, that's nuts. And because it's a rarity, the value stayed high. Currently, I think the value on something like this is about 16 to 18K Canadian. So about 40. So basically you've still doubled your money if you're holding on to this. Next one in line, another stainless novel. So this is basically your gentleman's watch. This is what everybody knows. This is your Submariner. Everything here is Rolex, so I'm not going to keep repeating that. And this is reference number N24 050. And that 0 tells you that it's full stainless steel. This happens to be the no date model. We have the one with the date, so they just put a date at the 3 o'clock position. This is something that's not cheap, but it's not also not way up in the Rolex line. I believe in US dollars, this is about 8,500. That's what the AD would charge you, and it has a market value of about 10 to 10.2 right now. So still, you can hold some extra money. So this is, again, same thing, just with the date function put on. And that adds, I think, about 950 US to the retail, and probably about 14 to 1500 more in the resale market, secondary is called.
Yeah.
Now you start getting into a little more of the flashy stuff. This is what's called the date just. Why do they call it date just? Because it just has a date. I know, clever. Whoever came up with these names, it's absolutely amazing. So in a situation like this, it is a beautiful piece. It's got the white dial, the sticked hour markers, minute markers. It is a very elegant looking watch. This is not incredibly expensive. I believe it's about 10.2 brand new. And the current market on Blue Dial one is about 17. So that's pretty good. Like, this is, by the time you're here, you're already on a wait list that's going to be at least 2 to 3 years. And this isn't way up. Like, you got to play that game. But why? Because the value's there. The market isn't really saturated with something like this. So if you're going to want to pay to play, you're going to pay a pretty decent premium to have this in the secondary market as a brand new item. Now we're going to make a huge jump here. These aren't in any particular order. I just had a space to fill. And this is what I'm going to be wearing when I take this guy. So this is your Rolex Sky Dweller, reference number 336935. And what do we tell you what number 5 is? Solid rose gold. And this particular blue dial is very, very hard to get. This is something your name could be on a waiting list and you'll never get it. Doesn't matter how much you spend with them. Doesn't matter how many watches you've had before at whatever level. A piece like this is worth, and will always be worth, over 2 times what you've paid for it. And especially with the market right now on gold, you're literally holding 2/3 of an ounce of gold in your arm. No, it's 2 1/3 ounces of gold in a watch. So I might even have that off. Yeah, it's probably more than that. We'll factor in. You write it down on the screen. I was completely wrong there. Because in my head, I'm trying to go back and forth from ounces to grams, because obviously, and I have no problem admitting when I make a mistake. So I'll get you the number as far as how many ounces, so you can figure out the ounces, or just go backwards from grams. To me, this is one of the most beautiful watches that Rolex makes. It's their most complicated with all the functions. But to me, this particular model, the rose gold with the blue dial, this is a phenomenal looking watch. A lot of people can't wear it because it's 42 mil and it's too big for their wrist. But I have 8-inch wrists, so it actually doesn't look too bad against me.
Perfect.
Yeah. In we go. Sorry, this is now Palm Springs. They can wait. This is important. We're educating people. All right. So here, everyone knows this. This is so many people's favorite. This is the Rolex Hulk. So again, you've got so many different lines. We've discussed the Oyster Perpetual, which is kind of near the bottom. You've got your basic subs. Again, close to the bottom. You got your Date Just, which is, we're going to call that entry-level mid-range, we'll call it. The Sky Dweller, you saw the stainless and white gold mix. That price, I think they're around 20, 22 Canadian, so 16.5 US. Just jumping to this tripled the price. But now we're coming back to, your Submariners. And the reference number here is 116-610, telling you that this is a stainless watch. I don't know if you get it from the authorized dealer. I believe the MSRP or suggested retail price is somewhere around 13.9 US. I think what I have to reference the fact I'm not a watch dealer. We deal in precious metals and assets. So we don't buy or sell these. We basically trade them on world markets based on. And you can get, in a future episode, we'll explain how playing the precious metal markets can get you this at fractions of what everybody else has to. So yeah, this is typically something that I think that was about 13.8, 13.9 US, currently worth 17 to 18. So that's holding some good value. And it's because it's green, it's affectionately called the Hulk. And then comparable in the, we'll call it the hierarchy of the tiers of Rolexes, just depending on whether you like a Submariner, as it would denote, is that's a diver's watch. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, which is how you set time when we're traveling. It's based out of Greenwich, UK. You have something like the Pepsi. So this is more for aviators who can use the dial to set the time in wherever they're flying to, so they know if they're on time. You know what time the watch itself will tell you what time they took off in the city that they took off from, and you can set it for, well, pretty much for anything. Maybe you want to know what time it is in Dubai after you've left London. Maybe you're flying to LA, preset it for LA time, so you know how far away you are, or what the current time is on the ground.
Yeah.
So that is your, what's referred to as the GMT2 Pepsi, because the blue and the red.
Yeah.
I know, how original. Again, stainless watch, but very highly sought after. I think when it comes to the GMTs, the current, this one month after month is one of the top sellers for most, whether it's, we don't really count the AD because anything from the AD is already snatched up the moment someone gets their allocation. So when something's really, really hot, we're talking about the secondary market. How much over retail can you get? And in the secondary market for the last at least 5 years, the Pepsi's been top 2. Currently, I believe it is the Batgirl or the Bruce Wayne. So all that would do is Batgirl is blue with black, Bruce Wayne is black gray. So it's where the two-tone is. This happens to be on the Jubilee, like we said, but you can also get it on the Oyster Steel. I prefer the Oyster Steel, but that's just me. Now, also a Pepsi. Here now we've gone into precious metals. This is a Pepsi, but it's precious metals now. Sorry, I'm not taking the wrapper on it. I can't scratch any of this kind of stuff, but it's got the protective film. This is a meteorite dial. So 40 some years ago, Rolex bought a piece of a meteorite that fell. You can't do that anymore because now space rights, I don't even know who owns that. I think it's governments or something like that. So you can't own space materials anymore. So every time that they put a meteorite dial on something, there's less meteorite left. So these, in comparison, like this, again, was probably about a $14,000 MSRP. It's probably in the neighborhood of 18.5 to 19. This MSRP is triple, and it's, yeah, right about triple, and its value is 4 times that one. So this will never go down in value. That's why it's so nicely wrapped up. This doesn't get worn. You do not want to have to replace the meteorite dial.
Yeah.
Here we are. Now we are at root beer. So this is the example we were talking about where you've got your stainless steel and your rose gold. So the bicolor is what they'll call it. To me, this is a very beautiful watch. A lot of people like, the other different colors on it, I find. And yeah, it's brown, big deal. But I just find the elegance of the shine of the stainless against the rose gold. I think it's just a perfect match. This is something that will always be worth more than you pay for it. Not just because the gold value, but because there's not a ton of them out there. It's not like it's super rare, but something like that. Everyone from a distance knows what it is. It's well respected. It's got a cute name. And it's just a piece that most collectors want in their collection when they're not just buying for hype. So we have. Now we're getting into, much like when we talked about the Sky Dweller, we've got what is affectionately known as a cookie monster. So it's at the blue dial again, wrapped up. So it's full precious metal, blue dial, or sorry, black dial, blue bezel. So it's now precious metal. Something like this. There's a Submariner right there. This one, MSRP wasn't even just under 14,000. The MSRP on this is like 34 and a half, 34 and a half to 36. I don't remember. With the big fluctuations in gold, don't hold me to the thousand of a dollar. But the aftermarket didn't appreciate. Like it's very few people can afford stuff. You're getting into that level where your credit card doesn't tap through anymore. You probably don't have enough line of credit to get it. So unless you're going to remortgage your house and take out a HELOC, it's hard to get something like this. We don't even have a lot of them just because it's not something that we can trade for what we want to give away. Again, we're not going to rattle off who each of these belong to, but these are all going to members.
Mm-hmm.
So over here, this is the only one we have on the Oyster Flex, which is a composite rubber band. I know it seems weird. Like, why would you? You're talking about these don't go on their cheap watches. These only go on their full gold. You know, they're. I don't know how to. This is the other thing we're always trying to talk about. Let's say I keep forgetting that sometimes maybe you've got someone who doesn't know anything about. So we never went through all the different pieces. Obviously, that's the band, that's the clasp, that's the case, that's the bezel, that's the dial, and you got your hands. Then you got subdials in a chrome like this. So this is what's called the Pikachu, the Daytona Pikachu, for obvious reasons. So you've just got gold on gold on gold on a rubber strap, and a lot of people, they can't quantify why I think the MSRP on this is like $42,000 or $43,000, but the secondary market had gone up to like $130,000, which is nuts. It's a rubber strap, but they don't make many of these, and to get on this waiting list, you may never get one. That's where I think some of it is a bit, and I understand Rarity, but again, it's comfortable. Trust me, you put this on, it's very, very comfortable. That you don't sweat in it, none of that. But I do find watches like this that is hard for myself to even comprehend how they hold so much value. Now we're getting into the ones that were specifically for our members with very high achievements. These are your Rolex day date, referred to as the president, because it's got the presidential strap, which is completely different bracelet than anything else in the Rolex line. And these are all precious metals, whether it's yellow gold, white gold, rose gold, platinum, so they're very, very expensive. This is the one thing that everyone in any society, if they see it on your wrist, they know you're playing on a certain level, that either you're very high on the AD's allocation list, or you got some serious money to walk in and just buy one in the secondary market. Like, these aren't six-figure watches, but the MSRP, like in Canadian, with the current price of gold, not a lot of people can walk in and spend $61,000. Like, there's nothing. That's the base price. We haven't started adding like baguette indicators. We haven't added any diamonds anywhere else. Like, it's literally just the barrier to entry is 61,000 Canadian and 42,000 US, and they hold their value. So this is a yellow gold dial, day date. Why? Because it's got the day up top, the date on the side. Very clever. Sounds cool when you call it the president. And if you actually look it up, most presidents in history have only wear a lot of times. And this, as you can see, yellow gold, this is rose gold with a chocolate dial. This is actually worth quite a bit more than this one because it's got the diamond paillettes. So this would probably be 9,000 more just to add that to the dial. Again, I'm not a watch dealer, so I may be taking information on what was desirable 3 months ago when you're hearing it now, so maybe it's changed. This, same thing, but it's got Roman numerals, and it's white gold, beautiful blue dial like this. To me, this is one of the best looks. These are a bit flashy.
Yeah.
Especially if you're wearing a black suit, you're really, really going to notice yellow or rose gold sitting on your wrist as it peeks out. And of course, you're going to do that every once in a while.
Yeah.
Your dream. But if you don't want that to be seen with that, this almost looks like stainless. Anyone who knows the difference, like if you just look at the two, that's stainless.
Yeah.
That they don't look at all the same,
No.
but from 10 feet away, a novice or someone would just see a flash. I think, and especially with the ring needles, that to me, that is beautiful. This out of what's here in the Date 8 series, that's what I'd wear. And I've actually got 4 of these for our members. Not this one. Now we're playing a slightly different game. Do you remember how the Pepsi had a meteorite dial? Well, this, and it's got some weight. Like you could hear it.
Yeah.
But you just be gentle. It dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got some weight. So this is a platinum Date 8 with a meteorite dial and diamond baguettes. This is one of those things where there's probably not even 100 of them put out a year. So for us to have this in this box, that's why it's still wrapped up. And this platinum is incredibly difficult to work with, and it's actually worth less than gold, especially currently. But it's very difficult to work with, very difficult to make lengths, very difficult to polish. And then go and throw some meteorite in. Piece like that is, if you know what it is and you see it on someone's wrist, that places them in a certain game in a room full of people that are trying to flex a wristwatch. But it's a subtle, it's like this. This would even eclipse this. But even with all of this in here, this piece would just be like, wow, who is that person that they had the ability to get this? Because anybody can buy it secondary, but there's not a lot sold secondary. I mean, if you go on something like Chrono, which basically brings together all the watches sold of any type of value across the planet, if there's 8 of these available, I'd be surprised. So it has nothing to do with the platinum. Like, yes, it's still a precious metal, but it's half of the value of gold. This will always be worth more than a gold variant. And we've got to run through all of that. Hope I didn't bore you.
No, it's interesting to learn the difference in the material, the difference in the details, like the date. I really liked the one that would be for a pilot, where you can.
The GMTs,
Yeah, those are cool. So lots to take away.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people watching will just say, oh, that's so stupid. Like, this is the problem with the world. Why are watches worth so much? They're focusing too much on what it was sold as. This, again, is something I have, and it was given to me by someone very, very, very important to me. A 1979 date chest, solid 18 karat gold. At the time, because their credit didn't really exist in 1979, the wealthy had business credit cards. And if you had a lot of money in an account, you'd get a personal credit card. Like, it's not like it is today where everybody has a $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 line of credit and $800,000 houses. No one had credit cards. And no one had $1,900 cash to go buy a single Rolex watch. Like, we can't fathom that because we understand making $1,900 a week or a day or an hour or every second. What's in this? I didn't even do a quick addition on what this is worth. Most people don't make this much gross in 4 or 5 years. But what I'm getting at is in 1979, to have $1,900 free to go buy that watch was unheard of. A house at that time was $25,000, just in perspective. That watch now, I would never sell it. There's no one could offer me enough money because I don't value money more than what that piece means to me. That piece now is almost $30,000. So that's 15 times its monetary value. but the story behind it and who it came from cannot be replaced. Giving someone $1,500 or $1,900 from 1979, giving it to you now, it means nothing. It would be really cool if you put it in being, an investment that grew and you could hand that growth down. Or that's all not personal. The value of handing someone an asset, especially in a scenario like what these are going to. These are people that have done business with us. They've started businesses on their own through us. They've learned through us, like yourself. You remember, anyone can go buy a watch, but being gifted something that says, we did something together. Yeah, you're a mentee, I'm a mentor. You cannot put the dollar value on that, but it's a piece of asset that grows in equity over time. No one even has to wear them. And yeah, technically devalued a little bit that I put names on the back of it. Like, I think this one's for Jen, this one's for Cass, this one's for Jason, this one's for producer Mac. He doesn't know yet, but I've got his name written on the back.
He's beauty.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you're going to talk about what someone like him should wear, this is it, because he's probably more rare than the accessibility of this. People like that are way up there. But yeah, all these have an allocation. I'm not going to rattle it all off, but and this is only the first half. I haven't got the other half here, so these are going to go back to Dubai into the vault and be held, insured, and maybe in the future, when I'm back in Edmonton, I'll bring the other half for the other members, and we can discuss it again if it's not too dirty.
That would be awesome.
I'm going to wrap this up. The owner of the place was kind enough to lock it down, so
Yeah.
no security risks. And yeah, so that was that.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
I'm trying to figure out a way to frame this question, but the essential...
Start with a random question and we'll evolve it.
Yeah, my curiosity is that a lot of people will think very, like, literal, linear, and they'll think, like, oh, like this... I should get this watch simply because of the material, but they're not thinking of those details like the color, or they're not thinking of the details of the connection or the rarity of the watch. Like maybe if it's more of a common material, but it's got one customization. And what I'd be curious to talk more is about the value of like the connection, the value of that moment in time, or the value of what was like the behind the scenes things to be someone who acquired such an item, like similar to people like Mac. We talked about how he's like a rare human being. And he wouldn't, from what I know of him, he wouldn't be the kind of person who'd be like, oh, well, I need to get this because it's going to be worth this much. And when people see me wearing it, it's going to be this.
No, he does not care. Especially like if you take timepieces, for example, he will find and acquire exactly what he likes. He doesn't Google, it's the most popular watch. He'll never do that. Because he's more of a horology guy, like he takes apart watches, he plays with them, he learns about the mechanics behind it. It's where he has the time to do what he does. It just baffles me because all the charities he done in the city, he takes care of.
Yeah.
All the seminars that are built out, he takes care of. I'm kind of like one of the faces of what we're doing, but he does all the background work, sits down with people to open up their budgets, figure out where they can improve their lives, help people with small businesses understand the finances behind it. Yeah, I don't know. I've found one of him in my entire life, and that's why he does what he does, and that's why he doesn't know any of this.
Yeah.
That's not the only one with his name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to put the relationship into it, again, anyone can use credit. This is why most people are broke, is because, let's go back to the watch from 1979. You couldn't fake that. You couldn't fake the ability to buy a $1,900 watch because you couldn't get on credit. You couldn't instantly, by getting a credit card, go and get that watch like you can now. It would take decades of building up your net worth, your business. Maybe you were a solopreneur. Maybe you were handed a business that was failing. You went up and down through all the different difficulties in the economy. And you ended up at that point where, okay, I finally have enough that wearing this, I can afford. That's how people used to play it. Now with a credit card, people are like, well, I want that. But I don't want to have to earn it. So I'm going to go get credit. And they buy the wrong things. Maybe that a particular watch, they got lucky. When you had to research and study and save years to get towards something, you bought exactly what you wanted. When you just have credit and you can go, haha, mine. You buy what you think is what other people want to see.
Yeah.
And what happens when you buy what's the hype and the flash? The hype and the flash goes away when something else is hyped and flashed. So now you've used credit, probably 19.99%. So not only are you taking the depreciation on what you bought, you probably bought it at its peak because hype. Great, perfect example. And this, thank God that we have, that we have these here. Those Rolex Submariners, like I was saying, even a no date. So that's a $10,000. We'll just round it up to 10,000. The no date, just the basic Submariner blacked out. During the peak, when everybody was getting served money and people were afraid of their currencies collapsing, they were trying to put it somewhere that they could instantly make more money. You know, when I think about money, it's the most useless tool on the planet. What that did is that drove that $10,000 watch when it got hyped up, is that in the secondary market, all of a sudden it was worth $13,000 because more people wanted to buy it. And because that range in 2022, especially with free money being handed out, was accessible. So it drove the market up. Well, I can get 13,000. Well, Rolex still isn't making more, so I have to go try and find one for 12,000 in the secondary market, flip it that same day and make $1,000, which is pretty lucrative, you think, to make 9 points in a day.
Yeah.
And that's pretty damn good when you consider a bank gives you less than 1% a year. But what does that do? Now there's less of them available at $12,000. So it shifts the scale up. And now you can get 15 in the secondary market. So you find one for 13.5, sell it for 15. 15 is the new price. Then all of a sudden it's 17. At one point, those no-date Submariners were trading around $18,000. Why? Because the average person with broke mindsets chases money and they're willing to use credit to do it. Wealthy people aren't trying to chase making $1,000 on a watch that's only $10,000. They're going to buy this and it's only going to go up. That's one of the dynamics that most people don't understand. It's not the wealthy who are greedy. It's the broke mindsets that are greedy, and they produce hype. The hype is what makes things cost more. And then the last final purchasers on their credit card to get that $17,000 or $18,000 Submariner, the market didn't crash. The market corrected. The world was like, this is a $10,000 watch you bought for 18. Sorry, now it's back down to 11.5 for a no date in the secondary market. So if you bought it at 18 on your credit card and you've been paying 20% interest and you lost 40% of your value, 45, 50% of your value, the market didn't crash. You're just really bad at understanding how to play markets. And then let's just say someone like us just comes in and buys up a store that's going out of business because they shouldn't have been in the business in the first place. And we'll get dozens or hundreds of watches. They just need their line of credit covered and they need it. Their rent is in arrears. They're not selling any of the pieces. And you walk in and buy out the whole store. 30, 40 cents on the actual dollar value. So I know we kind of went off on a tangent there, but that is a really good example of who ruins market rates. People, the average person who gets greedy, drives up hype, and the average people lose when markets come down. The wealthy just get involved when the markets come down. They don't force it to come down, but when it is down, now they use their assets to borrow against leverage to buy what everything else came down to, that the broke mindset now has to clear out to get rid of their debt that they can't afford. If that is the only lesson that came out of this video right here, that's what people need to understand. The wealthy it's easy to blame them, but you don't live in their world, so you don't actually know how they operate. The wealthy don't have any money. The wealthy, as we've discussed, have assets that they borrow against. They have debt. You don't pay interest on debt. Or you pay interest on debt, but you don't pay tax on debt.
Yep.
So they've limited their tax liability. Inflation chews into currency. In Canada, it's been around 7% the last couple of years. So even if you have the same $100,000 a year later, you have 7% less buying power. So if that's understood, because it's mathematics, you don't become wealthy by holding currency. You hold assets. So it's just extrapolate from that. If the wealthy don't have the money, who have the money? People. People chasing money. They have all the money. And they determine the value of everything around them, about what they're willing to pay and how much they need it, or tell themselves they need it. You don't need a new purse, but you want a new purse because someone who looks like they're in a better position than you has it. So you use credit. And then you have to trade your time for currency to go pay off your debt that someone else makes interest in. That does not make sense to a wealth mindset. So just neither world understands each other. Wilson had said a really good point on that after he started traveling with us. He says, the wealthy and the average mindset, they never align because they don't live in each other's world. They don't understand how they operate day to day. But you'll have average mindsets talking to millions of other average mindsets online, and they all agree that they're there because they've been held back by the wealthy. The wealthy don't waste their time getting up to hold people back. They just become wealthy and leverage and become even more wealthy.
I can think of so many different aligning examples that could possibly help people get a handle on it. Like anybody that's into fitness, they can think about how a healthy, fit person isn't trying to slow down an unfit, unhealthy person from becoming healthy and fit. The healthy, fit person isn't the reason why the struggling person struggles. It's something in that struggling person's environment or mindset or surroundings that's holding them back.
Yeah.
And even just so many industry examples of people who are doing well in their industry versus people who are struggling in their industry. So hopefully people are able to learn from the progression and evolution of watch appreciation, watch enthusiasm, all that stuff, because there's lessons that can correlate to so many other things.
The first step for me, if you're going to progress, is understanding it's only a watch because the entity, the piece of the asset needs a need.
Yeah.
This is a cup. No one needs a cup. It has no value. But if I'd like a cup of coffee, it's really hard to take it in my hand. Now the cup has a value. That seems like it's overly simplified. But that's one of the ways to understand the difference in mindsets when people walk through the day. The wealth mindset or an average or broke mindset. Are the stimuli that are coming in telling you need to buy something? Or is it telling you I should invest in that? Because it's kind of the same thing. Let's go back a little. You mind if we tangent off? Okay. You know that we produce cocoa in the Dominican. Price of cocoa has skyrocketed in the last 2.5 years, as anyone who bakes will be able to tell you. I think it's over 300% of what it used to cost. Do you think that affects me at all? Or our farms? Not at all. The land still costs the same. The laborers who we pay incredibly well. We pay over 2 times the industry standard for farm labor. Mainly just as the profits there, and the other halves don't have to work if they don't, because they bring home 2 salaries. We've got all our variables covered. The land doesn't cost more this year than it did last. The product that you're planting doesn't cost you more. The product cost that went up for the end user is the end user's product. The market just dictates how much profit there is. And, and that governments play against each other. Oh, well, there's tariffs in place now. 30%. Chocolate's up 300 and something percent. Please tell me how that tariff, just because you hate who put the tariff in place, has turned into a 300% increase in cost. Yeah, the math doesn't math. So that's where we tell people to use the math when making their decisions, not how they feel about
Yeah.
political parties or billionaires or whatever it is. Say, I like chocolate. It's a great gift. So for us to free, business in a place where we do business, we got into the cocoa game, created jobs, created another product that if we want to, we can sell. We can literally use it to market globally to give gifts. This is where no one understands. Why would you do that if you don't sell it? Well, I like eating chocolate. Created your own chocolate industry because you like chocolate? Yeah, why not? See, when someone says why, that tells you they don't understand why not own all the variables. In my head, it doesn't make sense to keep going out and buying crap chocolate where they put less and less cocoa into it to make a bigger spread, like a drug dealer stepping on their product.
Yeah.
No one is smarter or better than anyone else. But if you don't like the results you're getting, you have to change what got you the results you don't like. And if that's up here, that's where the change has to happen. You don't, not this work smarter and not harder. Those are cliches that don't actually make sense. Change the way you look at life and your results will change. A lot of people will probably get upset that I've just shown you. You know what? Let's just, for the sake of it, let's just go through and rattle off what's something this is currently. So these, let's do it in Canadian first,
Okay.
just so your Canadian viewers will get it. MSRP on these is about $22,500 to get them from the authorized dealers. There's $50K. 60, 70, 80, 95, 140, 155, 170, 200, 215, 255, 310, 370, 430, 490. We're going to say 600,000 Canadian over here. So 420,000 US. Let's go with what the market's. You know what? Let's not even go with that. Who cares where it fluctuated? Because that's irrelevant to someone who can't even afford to buy it. And they're going to be very upset that there's over 600,000 Canadian here, 420,000 US. Well, why don't you just give that away? That could help so many people. Never has giving someone something helped them. In the moment, it put a Band-Aid on, but the moment they're done that meal, and I'm not saying don't feed people, because as you've seen, we do that weekly. We're out we buy extra food just to give it away. On our farms around, all laborers eat for free. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do something, but you got to generate the revenue first.
Yeah.
So a lot of people be like, oh, you could buy a house. This is so stupid. Why does the world value this instead of houses? Well, that came from a broke mindset. You understand why this would have value. So don't question what to do with it. Because if we sold this off and bought another house, then those same people will say, oh, look, the wealthy are buying even more houses, driving up the price of houses. You see how they always complain. Start formatting with more knowledge how to build up an asset base. Or assets you have, or you can borrow against, and invest in more investments that continue to grow, which continue to have more equity, which you can continue to borrow against, as opposed to saying, I want coffee. I pay whatever coffee cost. Oh no, I'm down $7 more today. But we also started with coffee. We bought a new coffee industry, also in the Dominican. Not as a flex, but everybody likes coffee, and maybe you don't like chocolate. There's something wrong with it. You don't like chocolate. Fine, I'll get you with coffee. Hey, would you like some coffee? I'm going to bring some back. I roasted specifically because this is how I like it. Would you like to try it? I'm Italian. I like to make tiramisu. You know what you need in tiramisu? Chocolate and coffee.
Yeah.
Some might as well on the farms too. I keep using I, but it's we. So I don't need any profit from it. I get free chocolate. I get free coffee. I get to share all that with everyone. And I can give them $600,000 this round, and next round, even a little bit more than what's in here to finalize the first, we'll call it equity share of the people who've been coming to sit at our tables for the last half decade when we went basically public to allow people to come play. You don't know something? Come learn from us. I don't like being called a mentor. We don't have a course. Have we ever tried selling you a course? No, because it's bullshit. People selling you courses are doing it so they can make money. But what do they know about making money if you don't buy the course? Nothing. They don't teach you anything. When they say they can scale you to X number of dollars a month, you either know how to generate revenue or you don't. So how can they say $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month? Knowledge is knowledge. It should be any amount. If you actually have the knowledge, it could be $1 million a month. It could be 10 million a month. It could be $1 billion a month. How do you think? And that gets your results. So why would someone, what would be selling you a $10,000 course that wouldn't even buy any watch? Well, any of them, sorry. Maybe from the 80, if you had a list, you can get this one.
Yeah.
That's 8,400 Canadian. So what am I going to do with $10,000 to sell you a course? Then we got to pay taxes for charging you. And then you don't want to get involved because you got to come up with 10 grand just to learn how to make money. No, not make money. Build assets. Build the equity within the assets. Borrow against the equity. Ta-da. Now you know what billionaires need. Then you just sit at the right tables where opportunities become possibilities around the world. You just get involved with other people who are playing at a higher level. And now you've just limited the liability because 10 of you are putting in $1 million instead of you just going and putting in the 10 million. Well, you got 10 different minds working to make that successful. And if the people that each had $1 million, chances are they know how to run a business, how to start a business, how to start an industry. It starts making sense when you don't just say, death to the wealthy, burn the rich. Why? You have a job because of them. They don't pay me enough. You don't have enough skill to be paid enough. You don't know my situation. Wow, you sure have a lot of excuses lined up. Meanwhile, we're just having our coffee. Just having some coffee. So unfortunately, I know that gets a lot of people worked up, and I'm not actually intending to do that. I want people to be doing well. Why would I want people to not be eating? You know my story. The oldest of 3 boys that grew up with a single mom. But we were in Canada. We weren't actually poverty poor. We were just not wealthy. We just didn't have new bikes, new clothes, all that kind of stuff. So I just don't want to see people in that situation going forward, especially single parents.
Yep. I think that's all the questions that I have.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was good. Episode. I was looking forward to seeing how you cut this up and turn it into something cool.
Definitely.
Draw little devil horns on me and stuff. He's the enemy. Or, you're not going to be in Canada very often in 2026. And if I'm the enemy and I'm holding you down somewhere in Canada, you're going to have to explain to me how.
Yep. True that.
Great. Appreciate your time. How you're taking on this project. Horology timepieces.
Yeah.
It's very intriguing. I'm looking forward to seeing the content.
Villain Pole would be really good.
Cheers.
Cheers.